I hope that everybody's had a phenomenal Wednesday. It is still Wednesday, March 12th, 2014, and this is another live broadcast of Real Steel Sports with your host, Mr. James Krasneric. Had a very good show last night. Actually, no, I'm going to retract that comment. I had actually a pretty shitty show last night. I was kind of out of it. I was kind of rambling. But tonight, I feel a lot more focused. My mind's a lot clearer. So the show you get will be of the utmost quality. I just wish I could deal with the ulcers in the back of my mouth, right, pressing up against my tongue. Because every time I talk, it burns like a fire. But anyways, let's do some polls and let's do some free agency shit, because a lot of shit went down today. Most of these polls are Sports Nation. Most of these, free things I'm talking about are Sports Nation polls, but they tie into free agency day too. Now, the first poll is which player was a more significant addition for the Broncos, because they've been spending like crazy. They get T.J. Ward, Aqib Talib, DeMarcus Ware. I would have to say the best acquisition for them was Aqib Talib, because DeMarcus Ware is going to fit right on the other side of Von Miller, and they're just going to bolt pass rush like hell. But Aqib Talib adds credibility to an almost impossible to grasp secondary. And when I say it, I mean it's impossible to grasp, but that is seriously what the Broncos gave. Seriously, that's what they walked on the field with when they played Seattle in that Super Bowl. They were asking to get trounced. They really were. It was just a simple fact that, Russell Wilson saw enough holes and just dissected them. And it's a very close poll. Aqib Talib is winning the poll by a small margin, 51-49. Now, the next poll is: do I agree with the release of Darrelle Revis by the Buccaneers? Absolutely. What were you going to do? He's not going to take a pay cut because he's a selfish player, and no team's going to pay $16 million a year to sign him. Of course, he's going somewhere else. Now, Darrelle Revis is arguably the second or third best corner in the game right now, because I put Richard Sherman at number one, and you can argue Talib and him for number two, but think about it. Basically, I would not want to have Darrelle Revis because he's not a team guy. He wanted $16 million a year. That's why he went to Tampa. He got traded to Tampa and chose to stay there. The Bucs could have cut him. He could have said, "No, I'm not going to play for you," and walked out the door. But he chose to get that big contract extension, and the Bucs didn't want to play him. He's like, "Yeah, I want to go somewhere else." That just goes to show he values winning. He values winning less than he values money. That makes him a very selfish guy. 66% of the nation agrees that Darrelle Revis leaving the Bucs trading or releasing Darrelle Revis was the best decision, and I agree. Now, the next question is, with Aqib Talib added to the Patriots, how will they fare in 2014? Will they lose the wild card or miss the playoffs, lose divisional round, lose AFC title game, lose in Super Bowl, or win Super Bowl? Now, the number two opinion of Sports Nation is that they will win the Super Bowl with 30%. But number one is kind of what I'm feeling, in that whatever team gets to the AFC Championship game and plays them will probably beat them. Because you look at Indy's probably going to build. I expect Indy to sign Hakeem Nicks. That's a really good chance. That could add an extra dimension to Andrew Luck. The Broncos, you saw what they did on their defense. Wow. They lost. Losing, I'd say pretty much getting rid of Eric Decker was more than worth getting Ware, getting Talib, and getting T.J. Ward, the other safety they got from Cleveland. So I think Denver's got a really good chance to go back to the Super Bowl, but the Patriots, I think they're more likely to lose in the AFC title game, because other than the Revis move, they've not done a lot this free agency period, and they need to step it up. Next poll kind of shifts it away from the NFL for a second. The Nets are 3-0 this year against the Miami Heat. Now, would they be a legitimate threat to the Heat in a 7-game playoff series? Situationally, yes. Here's why. If I know the Heat are going to get the number 1 or 2 spot in the East, I know that. And the Nets will probably be lucky if they get the 7th spot at best. Because, come on. So there's a good chance those two could play each other in the first round. Here's the point I'm trying to make. It's that if the Nets had 4 out of 7 against the Heat in New Jersey, I think they got a real good shot up. Actually, in Brooklyn, why am I going back to New Jersey? Jeez. Brooklyn, I think they'd have a really good shot at beating them because, again, if you found a strategy that works against a certain opponent more than one time, then it's not a fluke. It's true that you know what to do to stop a certain team. However, I do think the Miami Heat will be a lot better come playoff season. Now, considering the series will be a 4 out of 7 in Miami if they two play each other, Heat are going to beat them in 5. They'll get one of the two games in New Jersey, and they'll win all 3 in Miami. It won't be that close. Now, what would I use to describe teams such as the Sixers and the Magic that are struggling so much this season? What would I consider them doing? Well, for one, if you look at the standings in the NBA right now, Orlando and Philly are the third and second worst teams in the Eastern Conference, respectively, and actually third and second worst in the NBA, respectively. The point I'm trying to make is simple. It's that the Magic are rebuilding. The Sixers are tanking. Philadelphia has lost 18 straight games. Orlando has lost 4. That should be all you need to know. Orlando's half decent at home, so at least they're trying in their home games. Philly's won 8 games at home and 7 on the road. That's just pathetic. It is literally pathetic. And if you're an NBA player in that team, if you're a part of the organization, you should be ashamed of yourself. I have to say the Sixers are tanking and the Magic are rebuilding. What team do I think will win the ACC tournament? Well, Virginia stumbled when they stumbled this past weekend. Syracuse has been stumbling as of late, ever since they beat Pitt in the buzzer beater. Maybe it's a curse. Duke has looked very good lately, especially beating North Carolina. Or could it potentially be another team that could potentially knock off any of those guys? And in my opinion, it's going to be Duke. You've got Jabari Parker. You got such a deep team like that. And Mike Krzyzewski's easily, I know Jim Boeheim's a great coach, but Mike Krzyzewski's the best coach. He'll figure something out because he's played these teams already twice, all these teams twice so far in the regular season. He's got to play them again come ACC tournament time. He'll be ready. Which team will win the Big Ten tournament? Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Nebraska, or another team? Minnesota, Iowa, and Ohio, those states, appear to select another team. In my opinion, though, I would have to say Michigan. They just seem to have a deeper team than everybody else, and they've been playing really, really well lately. So I think that favors the hotter hand. I think Michigan has a really good chance of winning this thing. What do I make of the NCAA's ban on the Baylor's Sikkim Bears uniform? For one, these uniforms, like if you do a show on Spreaker and you see the broadcast live thing, it's always checked off. It's like that green color. That's the uniform color, and these uniforms I think are actually really cool. Sikkim Bears is actually pretty cool to put on a jersey, and I like them, but I think it's a terrible call to ban them. Really? It's not offensive. You're just trying to get your team motivated, and you're trying to provide something that your fans can take part of and actually think are really cool. You could have a chant like Sikkim Bears or Sikkim Bears. That'd be so awesome. Will anyone ever do a perfect NCAA tournament bracket? I think there was one kid who had autism who actually legitimately had a perfect bracket until the Final Four a few years ago. Like, you look it up, he had almost perfect bracket. I think he might have been from Pittsburgh. I'm not really even sure. But I know it was some kid who had autism. Now, that's incredible to do that. I mean, let's put it this way. I've done a bracket every year since 2008, 2009. And I've gotten the champion right one time. So I just go to show how off I've been. I can't even pick the teams in the Final Four. So I always struggle. Is Kobe Bryant done as an elite player? No. I'd say this next year he's going to play, I don't know if it's the last or next to last year because he's signed an extension. I think he's going to have a phenomenal year, and I think that'll be it. I think he'll have one more shining good year, and that'll be it. I think the Lakers are really going to try to make a push for Kevin Love or another guy in free agency. Hell, maybe they would make a push for LeBron James or Carmelo Anthony. But honestly, I think at this point, we've seen Kobe throughout his career. It's that Kobe has always done the best person individually when he's been the guy and the other guys have been supporters. Because when he had to split time with Shaq was the big dog and he kind of had to take a back seat emotionally, even though he played very well. But his best years, his MVP year, Those years were all whenever he was him, Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum, Mar Odom, Meta World Peace for a while. Those were his best years when he was more or less him driving the train. Nerlens Noel is not expected to play this year. What kind of NBA player will he be? All-star, starter, backup, or bust? He's going to be a starter. Damn good player at Kentucky. If you can play really good football at Kentucky, then you're going to be a half-decent player in the NBA. I mean, you look what Anthony Davis is doing. He was a cut above the rest at Kentucky. He was literally, that might have been one of the most dominant seasons a player has ever had, what he did for Kentucky in 2011, 2012. That was an incredible year. And now look what he's doing in New Orleans. He's blocking shots. He's playing the same way he played at Kentucky. Just a shame his team's not as good. What should the Saints do with Darren Sproles? Back to free agency. At this point, he probably hates the Saints for not telling him straight up that they're planning to trade him instead of cut him. I think he would want to be released, and I don't blame him. But then the Saints are going to want to get anything they can back for him. I would just tell him straight out, like, if you try to trade me, I won't honor the trade. I'll retire. So you have to cut me. That's what I would do. I don't know. There's probably a way around that, but it's just the Saints could have been a little more professional there by actually going up to him and telling him, hey, we're actually going to trade you. And that might have changed it. But for him to find out on Twitter, I thought was kind of a low blow by the Saints to a player who's done so much for them. All right, what do I think of Larry Bird criticizing the Pacers' aggressiveness? You can hear my typing that I actually haven't read a whole lot about this. He wants the Pacers to be more aggressive. Duh. I mean, all right. Let's look at league standings this year. Points allowed. Obviously, the Indiana Pacers are the best defense in the NBA. They give up 92 points a game. They're the 10th worst offense in the NBA. I know their point differential is 6.5, which is trails only the Clippers, the Heat. Trails only the Clippers, the Thunder, the Spurs. But still, you could. You need to be more aggressive, especially in the last part of the season. This is the time of the year where, if a team's going to go to the playoffs, they got to finish the regular season on somewhat of a high note. They got to play better. And if the Pacers really do want to win a first NBA championship, they got to take in what Bird's saying, because if they're scoring 90-something points a game like they've been the last 2-3 weeks, they're not going to get out of the first round, let alone even contend for the title. Because their defense is not going to save them against teams like Miami, against teams like even Toronto or Chicago, if they can't score points. If I was good enough to play in both the NFL and the MLB, what would I choose? You figure for health reasons you'd want to choose MLB. You get more money and you play healthier. But for me, I don't know, because I think it'd be fun to be, an NFL player, like a quarterback or a wide receiver, or even just a free safety. Lining up to swing a bat is just, it's kind of dull. Maybe it's just the fact that I'm a tennis player and I'm always, trying to test my limits. And I really can't say that in baseball I could actually test my limits, because half the time I'm just standing still. Maybe that's just a personal thing. I don't know. But I personally would rather play in the NFL. It's kind of surprising. It's a one-sided poll, because 64% of the nation says Major League Baseball over the NFL. This is a poll that I think is not getting enough value, and this is a sign that I think might be the most underrated one so far, and that's how much will Golden Tate help the Lions in 2014. Now, Golden Tate was the best receiver, was the number one receiver for the Seahawks this last year, and I think the year before he was too. And 58% say a lot, and 42% say a little or not at all. I think he's going to help a lot, because for one, Calvin Johnson did pretty much all he did last year. Was there ever another number 2 wide receiver who was any good? All right. I'm going to go through all the Lions seasons ever since Calvin Johnson was drafted. I believe he was drafted in the first round of 2007. I remember distinctly because of the fact